News traffic and travel report.
There's just 2 weeks left to see how you could be a spring winner, as we have an incredible £17,777 in tax-free cash to be won. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also give you the latest Mulberry handbag and not one, but 2 sought-after designer watches. Make sure you don't miss out, as lines close on the 4th of April. For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome to GBN Tonight with me, Christopher Hope. Coming up, Rachel Reeves unveils £5 billion in welfare cuts, but with growth forecasts halved and borrowing costs rising, the Office for Budget Responsibility warns she may still be forced into tax hikes or deeper cuts. I'll be joined by a Redwall Labour MP to discuss this next. So tell me, what are your thoughts on the spring statement and how might it impact you? Let me know, gbnews.com/your say. Plus, I'll have a consumer expert with us to explain all of your answers to important questions. And foreign criminals have been given taxpayer-funded asylum accommodation because lack of returns agreements prevent them from ever being sent home. And Ed Miliband's Green Crusade could bring a battering ram, do you get it? Straight into the heart of Britain's beloved fish and chip shops. The push to switch from gas to electricity as part of the net zero agenda could close a staggering 1 in 3 of all of our great British chippies, putting thousands of local businesses at risk. Now, Rachel Reeves used her spring statement today to announce £5 billion in welfare cuts and confirm that defence spending will rise to 2.5% of gross domestic product by 2027, as she tries to stabilise the public finances. But despite these measures, the Office for Budget Responsibility has warned that she faces almost a 50% chance of needing further tax rises or spending cuts, with just £9.9 billion of headroom, spare cash if you like, to meet her target of reducing debt as a share of GDP by 2029-2030. With borrowing costs rising and growth set to halve this year, experts are warning that tough decisions may still be ahead. Joining me now at GB News studio in Westminster is Labour MP for Rother Valley, Jake Richards, as well as my expert panel, Kwasi Kwarteng, the former Chancellor of the Exchequer and Tory MP, and the former Labour MP, Lloyd Russell Moyle. Right, to you first then, Jake Richards. When you were elected last July, did you imagine you'd be cutting benefits after 9 months?
Well, look, the first thing is that you don't get to choose when you come into politics. We've inherited a real mess, and the economy is in dire straits, and we've had to take some pretty drastic and difficult decisions to start turning it around. Yeah. So, difficult decisions. But the second part of this is there is nothing that is progressive about keeping people on benefits. We need to get people back into work. This £5 billion figure is part of a much wider package to try and get people who are not working at the moment, who can work, back into work. And that's going to be a process that the government is going to be taking over the next few months. And I think that's one that we should be championing. Because ultimately, the best route out of poverty is work. And that's why the Labour government is trying to push people who can work back into work.
Voters aren't happy, are they? They've been campaigning outside Parliament today. You've seen them, I'm sure you walked around and seen them there. You're going to face a bit of a stiff wind amongst people who might be voting Labour next time.
Look, you've got to take difficult decisions. You're going to upset people at times when you're in government. We're in a difficult position as a country, and sometimes to get out of a difficult position needs difficult decisions. But look, I'm very happy to make the argument that we have 3 million people in this country who are currently off work sick. That figure is rising exponentially. We have 1 in 8 young people not in full-time work or education. These are pretty shocking figures. The last Tory government took their eye off the ball on this issue, especially in the final few years, and this government is now trying to get a grip of it. Now, that will take time. There's no easy answers. It's a very the welfare state is very complex, and we need to get it right. We've published a green paper last week, and over the next few months, I'll be holding the government to account on making sure this happens in a fair way, but we need to get it done.
If there's a vote, would you vote in favour of these cuts?
Well, I would support any government programme that is going to get more people back into work, which lowers the welfare bill, but it has to be fair.
So the plans set out today, you vote for them?
Well, the plans, let's look at the details. You know, we've had...
So you're not saying right now you vote for them?
Well, I, like any MP, should look at what the details of any bill and project is. It would be completely negligent not to do that. But do I support the government initiative to try and get people back into work, to lower the welfare bill? By the end of this Parliament, if we didn't do anything, it would cost £70 billion a year on welfare. That's not good enough. So we've got to take action, and I'm pleased the government is. OK.
Now, earlier we heard from Sir Ed Davey, the leader of the Liberal Democrats. He had this to say about these cuts of benefits.
I do also think we need to get people back into work, but we need to do that by supporting people, not punishing them. So we're really worried that some of the welfare proposals are going to hit the poorest in our country, people who will really struggle to work. We're seeing figures come out of the OBR suggesting 800,000 people are going to lose their PIP by the end of this period. Another 150,000 people lose their carers allowance. It's a double whammy for some households. That's actually not going to help the economy.
Sir Ed Davey there with the Lib Dem position. Now, the Chancellor said that people will be £500 better off by the end of the decade. Do you know how you get there?
Well, wages are rising. Inflation is due to come down. Interest rates have been cut. Now, look, the OBR takes a lot of different calculations. A 4 or 5 year projection has some degree of uncertainty. But look, no one is saying that everything is rosy. You know, we inherited a mess. The global economic situation is very complex and difficult. But I think today we've seen the green shoots of recovery, and we're starting to see signs that people will be better off under this Labour government, certainly than they were under the Conservatives for 14 years.
I mean, people feel broke at the moment. Next week, we're looking at energy going up by £111, council tax average £109, water bills £123, car tax and TV licence a £5 each. Broadband bills up £36.
Chris,
I mean, it's hard. We're facing 10 days of absolute misery for people.
It's difficult.
And they're being told they're £500 better off by 2029. It's an insult to them, isn't it?
No, we know it's difficult. No one's saying that the cost of living crisis has gone away overnight, but we know that wages are going up. We know that inflation is coming down. We know that the economy is growing. Not saying it's perfect, a long way to go, a lot more work to do. I hope the government will go further on some of these measures to get growth in the economy, to support people, working people with wages. But this is a start, an important start. And, you know, these are difficult decisions. At the same time, we want to raise revenue to invest in public services, because if the NHS doesn't improve, then it makes it tougher for people to get back to work. So there's lots of different challenges for the country at the moment. Defence spending, a massive challenge that we've committed to 3% of GDP on defence.
Cut the aid budget for that. That's not very Labour.
Well, but Chris, I do not accept that it's not Labour. And I've been on GBNews before, and I've really challenged this proposition. It's not Labour.
It wasn't manifesto, I mean by that.
Well, the world has changed somewhat even since the last election. I think anyone would accept that. And let's just be very clear. The Labour Party was one of the founding members, the principal members behind NATO. So I have absolutely unashamed in saying that we should support our military, we should raise our defence spending, and that means
pro the aid budget decisions. Normally. That's why I was
and also pro-growth as well, because defence spending can lead to brilliant jobs, reindustrialisation of our country.
Just on growth, Jake, before I turn to the panel, 2% annual growth was planned. Now it's 1%. So all the budget last October's failed, hasn't it? I mean, basically the economic prospectus is not working for this government.
Chris, again, you do need to look at the global situation at the moment. It's pretty much every single Western country, in Europe anyway, has seen their growth downgraded over the last 6 months for reasons that we can talk about if you want. And look, in the next year we're estimated to have the second highest rate of growth in the G7. These aren't big numbers. We're living in an era of low growth across the world, and we need to be realistic about it. But I think there is some encouragement that the OBR have upgraded our growth figures over the next few years.
And that's finally on the new homes, they'll be built worth 0.4% of GDP by the end of the forecast period. That's a lot of new homes, and you're hoping you can get them through people saying they want them built where they live.
One of the most interesting, which I hope that Conservative supporters will support, is that these planning reform has added a huge amount to GDP, and this is something we should have done some time ago.
OK. Kwasi Kwarteng, I can hear you snorting next to me. Of course, you're a former chancellor.
Government. So what governments do is they blame everybody else,
OK,
apart from themselves. They blame the international situation, they blame the opposition and the inheritance and all of that. The fact is, the Tory party, the Tory government was voted out in July. In October, once the Tories had been and gone, the OBR predicted a 2% growth figure for 2025. So they'd absorbed everything the Tories had done and said last October, when the budget happened, that we will grow at 2% in 2025.
Now it's halved.
In 5 short months, they've halved the growth figure. The Bank of England did the same last month when they thought we would grow at 1.5%, and they halved that. And I'm afraid the one thing he didn't mention, Jack, was that the budget of the end of October last year has had an impact on growth. They whacked up taxes to the tune of 40 billion, 25 billion of which was paid by employers and businesses in the form of national insurance contributions on NI, on employees. They've tightened up non-dom rules where people are now leaving the country. And the growth figures, guess what? They've been revised down, because everyone can see that the effect of hiking taxes to the degree they did has stunted growth. And people were saying that at the time. People were saying that at the time. They said these tax hikes will lead to lower growth figures.
Jake Richards has a claim that the budget last year led to where we are now.
The issue that Conservatives have at this is that they can argue against tax rise for employers' national insurance, but they have to say how they would fund the NHS. If they're not going to do that, then they're essentially arguing for a £22 billion cut to NHS spending. Now, waiting lists are coming down in the NHS. Under the Tories, they went up like that. With Kwasi Kwarteng back in government, they'd go up again. So, we need to be very, very careful about the Tories saying no to any of the revenue-raising measures. Oh, but yes, we really care about the NHS. No one buys it. That's why they were kicked out last year, and that's why it's not going to work this year.
So, the Tories were kicked out. The OBR said we're going to grow at 2%. And then now, 5 months later, they're saying we're going to grow at 1%. They've halved the figure. That means that we're going to have tax rise, probably tax rises. They say 50% chance of tax rises in the budget in the autumn. And this isn't the end. This is just the beginning, really, of another 4 years where if the government don't get growth, I mean, I pray to God they do, but if they don't, they will own this, and their own policies will have led to stagnation.
As a former chancellor, what you made of the forecast of growth starting next year, are these?
I think they're too optimistic. I think what they'll do, so they always do this.
You've been there. You've been in the Treasury.
So what they'll do is they've sort of predicted a soft landing. They said, OK, we're going to halve the growth figure this year, but next year it'll pick up. What is going to happen, I fear, is that come the autumn, they'll revise down the growth figures in 26 and 27, and we're going through the same old rigmarole. So once they revise down the figure, the Chancellor will have to find more money, and it'll come in the form of tax rises. And a lot of the Labour left say they want tax rises. They want to tax the rich.
Or bigger cuts. Or bigger cuts. Lloyd Russell-Moyle, is that what the left might be thinking right now? I mean, looking at these numbers on the benefits being hit, Jake Richards says the idea is to get them working and get them out or off the benefits treadmill. Is that might work, or you think it might be a difficult pill to swallow?
Jake is totally right that people having a life on benefits is not fulfilling morally or socially or economically. However, the benefits that we are proposing to clamp down on here, particularly PIP, are in-work benefits. 50% of the people who get PIP are in work. So it doesn't clamp down on getting people into work. And in fact, PIP is a payment to get people to be active in the economy. So, for example, if you are disabled and you can't get public transport, because at the moment large parts of public transport in our country are not accessible, the PIP pays for your taxi to get to work every day, so you can be economically... So you cut PIP. So you say, in fact, you double the point requirement to get it. So you... what you actually do is force those people out of the economy, out of work, because they won't be able to get to work.
So what would you do? I mean, I agree with Jake that you've got to show some discipline.
So what would some of the benefit cuts, I think, are foolhardy, and that's what Labour MPs, including the chair of the Select Committee, mentioned today. Some of them, however, are very good. Some of them, for example, making sure that we increase universal credit so there's less of a differential between out of work disability. Quite right, because actually all people need supporting. Making sure that we get people off waiting lists. One of the big reasons we've got a huge welfare bill at the moment is because people have had to wait years to get the hip operations, to get the knee operations that they need, and so they get welfare because you guys messed up the NHS. Fixing the NHS will bring that welfare bill down, and that's what Labour's doing.
So, Lloyd Russell, you think these cuts will land OK with the left of the party?
No, look, I think that the PIP cut will have to be looked at again. And bearing in mind, this is a green paper, a lot of it. It is going out for consultation. Sure. We'll get the details right. It is fair to say there's still work to be done here. But broadly, I think this was a positive announcement, wasn't it? We're talking about 10% of the military spending budget back in innovation in this country. We have wasted that in the past. Procurement under the Conservatives was so bad. We wasted so much money out of our military. We bought American and foreign goods.
It's still not bad.
It's still not great.
Well, you don't know how it's been spent.
It's still not great.
Look, but that's what they promised to reform. Look, we look at children in foster care. Today we announced more money in children in foster care. Why is that important? A child in a care home costs £250,000 a year. A child in foster care costs £10,000 a year, and they have better outcomes.
Okay,
so we will transform the lives of children and save money. You can do both. They were incompetent. We will have a balanced budget and a better country.
I'm very impressed. I'm very impressed that your bid to get it back into the House is...
you say that every week.
It's true. But the broader point...
the ball, not the man.
But it's interesting. But the point about the border point, and I agree actually with Jack at what he said about planning. I think we weren't very good on getting the planning reforms, and I hope the government does get them through. But the broader point is about growing the economy. And you're not going to grow the economy by hiking up taxes.
Jake Richards, is that the point? Will growth, all these numbers in this document here, the Office for Budget Responsibility, real? Can growth be at nearly 2% next year and going forward?
Growth has been upgraded over the next few years as a result of a lot of what this government has done. The planning reforms in particular have had a huge impact on the growth estimates that the Office of Budget Responsibility have had. And that's actually, they've only taken into account basically half of what we're going to do. The next stage is about to happen. So I think we can be optimistic about growth. But look, no one is pretending this is easy. You know, we have had an economy in this country that has had sluggish growth for a long time, since the financial crash in 2008. Now, we can blame the Tories for some of that, but I accept also these are difficult times. You look at across the globe, developed countries are struggling, who have similar economies to the UK. So this is not easy. And I don't think Rachel Reeves has ever pretended this is easy, or there's an easy answer that we're going to flick a switch in Whitehall and everything's going to be good. But the hard work, the grind of getting our economy back up on its feet while supporting public services has begun. And I think today was an important moment in that.
The impact of the Employment Rights Bill, these measures brought in by Angela Rayner to give immediate access to maternity rights to new employees and the like, are being criticised by the Conservatives, by Reform UK, by employers. That was not...
Of course.
And others too. And that was not scored in the Office of Budget Responsibility because it's still a bill going through House of Commons. Will that be a weighing down on growth?
Well, we'll have to see, but I wasn't old enough to say I remember, but in 1997, of course, everyone said that the national minimum wage being introduced was going to cause mass unemployment.
The Tories attacked that.
The Tories opposed that, business opposed that, and in the end, actually, it's been...
But it was set at a lower level.
Consensus now. We'll have to wait and see, but look, I'm not going to apologise for protecting working people, who I think...
What about companies who will be loath to take on new staff at that risk?
The central priority of this government is to try and get growth in the economy, and that needs to be done in the private sector. So we support that, but there's always a balance there to be struck, and I think this government is striking it in the right way.
Jake Richards, MP for Rother Valley, thank you for joining us tonight on GBN tonight, and my wonderful panel on great form as ever. Next, I'll be speaking with the Shadow Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs to get her thoughts on the lack of mention of farmers in the spring statement. Plus, I'll be speaking with some of you at home who are impacted by this spring statement. Do send me your views right now, gbnews.com/your say. See you after the break.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Dubes & Co. Weekdays from 6 p.m.
I spoke with one of the most inspirational ladies I've ever spoken to today. Her story will stop you in her tracks. Ladies and gents, this is Tina Nash.
Basically, I met Shane Jenkin back in 2009. Basically, he was very, very sweet to me for the first, I'd say 4 or 5 months. And I really fell for him. I've never really been in love properly until I met him. I was laying across the bed with my legs hanging off the bed, and I was wrapped up in my duvet. And next thing you know, I had hands through the duvet, start strangling me.
What had he done to you?
He'd come in, he'd beaten me unconscious. My head was twice the size of what it should have been, broken nose, broken jaw. And basically, when I was unconscious, he gouged my eyes out with his bare thumbs. I didn't know that I was blind until... basically, on that third time that I come back round after he'd knocked me unconscious, when I come back round, I knew that he was trying to kill me then. That is when I knew what he was doing.
Have your eyes recovered? Can you see anything anymore or not?
I haven't got any eyes. These are glass eyes. They're not even real. They're glass.
He was sent to prison, wasn't he? He got a life sentence.
Yeah. With a minimum, of 6 years minimum term.
And that was in 2012.
It was, and the judge said that he had to prove himself fit on a landing for 6 years with no medical intervention before he is even accepted to be allowed out on the streets. This has not happened.
Goodness me. And am I right now in thinking, Tina, that he's essentially in what most people would know to be an open prison?
Yeah, he's in Cat D.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Now, the most important part of GB News tonight is talking directly to you at home about how this spring statement will affect you. With me now is Georgie Frost, money mentor at The Times, to help navigate any quarrels or questions you may have. And here's a few. Welcome to the show, Georgie.
Thank you very much. Delighted to be here.
Thank you. Now, David says he's 73, retired and disabled. He receives the PIP. He can't do a job, any job, he says. What on earth should he do? He's a carer. He has a carer to wash him as he's incontinent. And she cooks for him. What can he do if his PIP is removed? He's fretting badly, not sleeping, not surprised. All retired people should be exempt from PIP cuts. What do you think, Georgie?
I'll caveat that early and say I don't know the situation that he's particularly going in, but look, from what I know of what he said, yes, it might be harder. It's in a point-scoring system, of course. Right? And actually, to reach level 4, points 4, you will have to be quite disabled. However, just listening to what you said there, it doesn't look like that should be a problem. If he is concerned, do speak to the Department for Work and Pensions and the people that organise this for you. Carers as well are another group that might be hit by this as well. I think the Carers UK have said about 300,000 carers will lose some of their allowance here as well. This is a very troubling time for people who are worried about it. What I would say to anything, any speculation about anything, whether that's pensions, whether that's ISAs, whether that's benefits, is don't make any decisions based on speculation. Find out the facts first. Speak to the people.
But people do worry, and that's the problem.
And absolutely right. Of course they would. This is a very, troubling time when you hear that £5 billion of cuts are going to hit those people in sickness and disability. And then you hear statistics like 3.2 million families will be £1,700 worse off on average. 50,000 kids will be pushed into poverty that weren't there before. These are worrying times. Of course they are. But there is help and support and advice out there for you, so make sure that you do access it.
Exactly, and just next week, there's a week of hell with these increases in bills and taxes.
Awful April.
Yeah, awful April. Well, welcome back. Now, we're going right now live to Victoria Atkins, the Shadow Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, with her take on the spring statement. Victoria, thank you for joining us tonight on GBN Tonight. Why did you think farmers should get a mention in this statement?
Sorry, Chris, I didn't hear that. Forgive me.
I just wondered why you felt that farmers...
I can tell you my views on the statement.
I just wondered why you felt farmers should have been mentioned in this statement. Obviously, lots of groups weren't mentioned. There wasn't much on tax at all, was there?
No, but what we know is happening today, and I take no pleasure in saying this, is that as a direct result of the decisions that Rachel Reeves made in her November budget, whether it's the family farm tax, whether it's the family business tax, and of course the dreaded national insurance hike, we know that there are already very, very grave impacts being felt across the rural economy. And indeed today, she, I'm afraid, just solidified the negativity around Labour's economic message to the countryside, because whether it is, as you've just been discussing, the impact, the worrying impact of some of those welfare speculation changes that we are hearing about, or whether it is the genuine difficulty that many businesses find themselves in today, going into next week, we know that her budget of broken promises and now her emergency budget of broken promises promises only a halving of growth, more unemployment year on year, and we know that that will mean much, much higher bills, sadly, for people watching your programme and for us all. So today was a glum day for the economy, but it shows, sadly, that just quite how badly wrong Rachel Reeves has chosen to make her decisions and the impact they're having on the whole country, including, of course, the rural economy.
She's made choices here, hasn't she? I mean, what would you have done? They're spending £22 billion on the NHS. People who are ill or hurting are being treated by the state. That's a kind of result, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, and you fought the election last year on cutting benefits by a far greater figure.
Yeah, so I'm really pleased you mentioned the NHS point, because rather like that other, the made-up figure that they've been using about their economic inheritance, which the OBR itself has said they can't legitimise it, so too, sadly, on this extra money that is supposed to be for the NHS. We heard a couple of weeks ago from the outgoing head of NHS England and the outgoing head of finance at NHS England that this £20 billion they have been talking about over 2 years, the overwhelming majority of that money is in fact going to go on, guess what? Paying the national insurance hike and the pay rises that this government promised without productivity reform. So very little extra is in fact going to the frontline services that we all want to see properly funded and looked after. So we, again, mustn't allow the Labour spin doctors to skew our cold, hard analysis of what is actually happening with the figures here, because the story they give is not the story that we are experiencing.
Well, to be fair to the government...
On the point about welfare, just on welfare, I think, we took the brave decision actually to try to start not just the conversation but the action to help reform the welfare system in a compassionate, thoughtful and measured way. And we know this because Labour before the election said, oh, I think Rachel Reeves said something about there shouldn't be a penny cut in welfare. Well, lo and behold, that's another broken promise. But what we know is that the very rushed and chaotic way that they've brought these reforms forward, as Mel said today, we think it's because, frankly, the OBR said, sorry, Chancellor, your maths don't add up here. But we know that the OBR has said that the impact on employment of these reforms they've put forward is nil, whereas the fact they have rejected our welfare reforms that we put forward before the election means that there will be some 16,000 fewer people in employment. So we, of course, support reform. We understand, we all understand that this system needs very careful, thoughtful work, but what they've done the last couple of weeks and the worry they've put people through, I'm afraid is not having that impact.
OK, just finally on the welfare cuts, are you saying then you might vote against them because you don't approve of them? You might vote against the welfare cuts?
So, look, Krista, of course we will consider these options when they're in front of us. I mean, in fairness, we've only just had the impact assessment today.
Yeah.
They rushed it out, we think, you know, hoping it would be buried. We will look at this very carefully. We want to ensure that welfare goes to, you know, some of the examples we've heard today. We want to ensure, of course, that people are looked after. We want to help encourage people into work if they're able to, but we fully recognise that not everybody else is able to, and that's why the safety net is there. But we must do this in a careful and thoughtful way, and we regret the fact that Labour is handling this as chaotically as they have done, but I'm afraid that is what we're seeing with the economy. As we know, growth is going to be is halved, unemployment is going to increase year on year, and the cost of living is just getting more and more difficult as bills go up.
Victoria Atkins, thank you for joining us tonight on GBN tonight. Thank you very much for coming in from College Green there. Well, back to the panel here, and Georgie's still here, the money mentor. Now, Janet, who's 50, Georgie, says this: I've left work in 2023 as I have progressive MS. I simply cannot work anymore. We're extremely worried about our future. We're in debt with our energy bill already, and paying debt off and current bills. We have to use part of our PIP on our utility bills and our rent, which I should be using on the therapy for my legs and arms. Our rent's gone up £200 a month. Water, energy, council tax has gone up. We won't be better off, we'll be worse off even more. I was a graphic designer, a really good paid job, and loved it, but I just can't do it now. My last option now is to try and get my private pension earlier for ill health. I want to try and save that for later in life. Well, tragic story there, difficult story.
It's awful to hear.
50 years old. Too early to get your pension?
Look, yes, you don't access
we don't know the full detail of
exactly right, but I wouldn't personally recommend doing that, but, you know, I can get some financial advice on that one. If you are in deep, deep trouble, I would ask, you know, have you spoken? Citizens' advice are wonderful. Step change are wonderful. These are free services that can help you find a way. I would talk to your energy firm, talk to those people, your creditors, that you owe money to. I'm not doing the government a service here, but what I want to say is what I think the government is trying to do is to stop the situation that we've got at the minute, where 1,000 new people are claiming PIP every day, the health element to those things. We have got one in eight, I think, young people who are not in education, training or employment. What they're trying to do is try to get down the figure, which I think is 500,000 from pre-COVID lockdowns, of those people who are accessing those disability benefits. It's to try to get those people who can work to go to work. If you cannot work, and I don't know your personal situation, but I would suggest that there is still support out there for you. This is to try and get those people who are caught in that cycle where they could get back to work. Now, absolutely agree with Lloyd here. I think this is a holistic approach which requires the NHS, it requires childcare. All these things need to be addressed. I myself went through a year of being unable to work, mainly because I couldn't get a back operation I needed, and I met many people who were sucked up into the black hole. So
you know how she feels, because in desperation, her pension is there.
I know the fear. I mean, I was a lot younger than 50, but I know the fear of thinking I will never work again, of looking around me when I went on all these courses to try and deal with that, the situation I was in, to look around at people who had been stuck for many years, lost in the system. And I think what the government is trying to do, and what the Conservatives were trying to do before that, I'm apolitical here, is to try and make sure that that doesn't happen for people. Because it's not a great place to be. It's not a lot of money that you'll be living on. It does help people, and that's the point with PIP. Half people are working. It's just to help you get through the things that you need to with the disabilities that you have.
And what they're facing now, Georgie, is these bills next week. Council tax, water, car, broadband, TV licence, so it goes on.
This is my fear, is I feel like we've sort of got a bit bored of the cost of living crisis.
No.
But actually, I think for a lot of people, this is very, very pertinent, and it's going to be so next month when, like you said, we're going to have a lot of bills going up. I think it was Bloomberg did some research, said on average you'll be £600 a year worse off. That depends on who you are and, of course, what you're doing. But, you know, these are still troubled times for people. There's a lot of people coming off fixed-rate mortgages who've got, you know, pretty good deals before and have seen rates go up at the moment and will be thinking, how on earth am I going to find an extra £400 down the back of the sofa? I can't. So these are troubled times. I think this is yet to play out. So I would reiterate that if you are in this situation where you feel like you're struggling and the only option is to you, to go to your private pension, you know, I would suggest please speak to charities like Step Change. They are free, they are independent, and they can help. So please go there first if you haven't already.
OK, Georgie, great advice. Thank you for joining us tonight on GBN tonight, and to my panel, of course. Coming up next, another Home Office scandal. Foreign crooks are being given homes on an indefinite basis because of Britain's lack of returns agreements with other countries.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
please bring us up to date.
Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Record numbers, and I said, you know, the second time I said, well, just keep running, Florida. And the big one was stolen from us, you know, so I said, we better get her for number 3. And we won in records. We won every swing state. We won by millions of votes, the popular vote. We won everything. We won the districts, 2,750 to 507 or something like that. And we just won so big. And her name is Susie Wiles. And she, where are you, Susie? And she was just named by one of the very prominent media groups. I won't mention it because I cannot stand the people, but she was just named as, and it's true, the most powerful woman in the world. Susie, that is crazy, huh? That's a big, her father was a great, Pat Summerall, a great announcer, really great football player and announcer for the NFL for like 27 years. He really got the NFL. He did pretty well with the NFL. He got him off to a very good start, didn't he? But he was great. But she's got those same traits. So thank you very much, Susie. Great job. Also, we're going to go to somebody that's really the rage right now. She's the youngest ever White House press secretary, Caroline Levitt. Caroline, look at you, huh? They said, sir, she's just too young. And I said, I don't know about that. She did awfully good because she did it during the campaign and she was awfully good. And she's been amazing. She just did another one just a little while ago. She looked at Susie and looked at me. I don't know. I think I'm ready, sir. How old are you? 27, right? 27. And I said, you're not too young. And she's knocking them dead. Everyone's talking about you. Thank you very much. Great job. And we have somebody else who's like a rocket ship, the counselor to the president. She served me well. I'm going to miss her, but we'll see a lot of her anyway. I hope it's on a friendly basis because I've got to be very concerned because she's going to be the new U.S. Attorney for the District of New Jersey. Alina, where's Alina Habba? Alina Habba. Thanks, Alina. She's going to be great. I'll tell you, she's going to be great. She's a great lawyer. And lives in New Jersey. And I said, that sounds like a good combination. Everybody wanted that job. They're all looking for the job. I said, wait a minute, doesn't Alina live in New Jersey? Yeah, I think Alina's going to get that job. So congratulations, Alina. It's fantastic. I'm also thrilled to say that we have more women in our cabinet than any Republican president in the history of our country. And joining us today is a woman I've known a long time. You talk about strong women. This is a strong woman. Remember, they were saying, he doesn't like strong women. That may be true, but if that's true, I'm in deep trouble because I'm surrounded. I got the strongest women. And this is a beautiful, strong, wonderful woman, Attorney General Pam Bondi. But yesterday, you know, she was talking about these guys that like burning down cars and plants and everything else. And I was watching her on television. She said, I'm going to get you. We're going to find you. And you're going to suffer. And I say, man, I don't want her after me. And, you know, it's amazing. The attacks have gone down very, very precipitously. It's really, Pam is fantastic. Thank you very much, Pam. Really amazing. Along with a woman who was given a very hard and difficult problem, the cost of eggs. This was the problem. The cost of eggs. Eggs were through the roof. If you got to see the Biden chart, it's like a rocket ship, and Trump is like this way. But I gave Brooke the Secretary of Agriculture, and I didn't know it. I didn't know it. She studied that in college. I didn't know that. I was going to give it to her anyway. It didn't matter that she studied, but it sort of helped, right? But she came in and she lowered the cost of eggs by almost 50% in 3 weeks. Right? Someday you're going to tell us that secret. I want to find out. But the chart looks great. It's Biden like this, and then we're like this. But we also, by the way, we lowered energy costs really like tremendously. Energy's way down. Cost of gasoline's way down. The cost of groceries, a word that I used a lot on the campaign. It's like an old-fashioned word, but it's a beautiful word, very descriptive word. And the groceries are coming down, Brooke, at a level that we're finally getting costs under control in our country, and people don't like talking about it because it's so good, it's so positive. I haven't seen one story on eggs plummeting by 50%, but someday they'll get around to writing it. Secretary of Education, she's trying to put herself out of a job. Linda, she's trying to put herself out of a job. She's moving education back to the states, and she's doing it at a rapid rate, and she's an amazing woman. I've known her also for a long time. She's been amazing. No matter where she's been successful, including with her husband building a tremendous empire. And Linda McMahon is very special. Thank you, Linda. Thank you. And it's getting praised, by the way, the concept of moving education back to the states, back to the mothers and the fathers. And you probably do it for less than half, and you're going to have great, great schools. You know, I say that in our country they have charts, and they rate the countries, various countries, and Norway and Denmark and Sweden and lots of places are rated at the top. And Finland, China's rated very high too. Tell me, that takes the big problem out, because if they can do it, that's big, so we can do it. And we're rated toward the bottom. We're at number 37, 38, 39, or 40 out of 40. So we're just about last. And yet we're first in one very nice category, cost per pupil. So obviously there's something wrong. We just have to repeat that, Linda, and everybody says, well, I guess it's time to do it. And it's been that way for a long time. And originally we had it run by home state, so we never had that kind of a problem. But it's going to be, Katie, it's going to be brought back again. And Linda's going to do it. And I just say, you know, she said, you basically want me to get out of government, don't you? I said, that's right. Do your job and get out. But I promise I'll have something else for you, okay? I promise I'll have something even better for you, all right? But you're doing a job, and we appreciate it. Also, a special man. He's got a tremendous majority. It's so easy, a majority of about one. I think he's the only man could do the job because everybody loves him. Everybody respects him. He's really smart. Really, he's so nice. People say, is he smart? I said, you have no idea. He's actually, you know, he's really nice because he's smart. He knows it's the only way you can live with it. Where is Mike? Mike. It's the only way you can do it. He's the nicest guy. But in actuality, he's not a nice person. He's ruthless. You haven't seen this guy when he gets angry. I'll ruin your image overnight. He is a phenomenal guy. Our great speaker, Mike Johnson. Thank you very much. I don't know. Is that good or bad for you? I'm not so sure. It's okay. He said whatever the heck you want to say is okay. First female Republican Attorney General of Iowa and an early supporter of Trump. And where's Brenna Bird? Brenna, thank you very much. She's so popular in Iowa. She came out so early, and I appreciate it very much. That's great. Alaska Lieutenant Governor Nancy Dahlstrom. Nancy, thank you, Nancy. Thank you very much. You have a great governor, too, by the way, Nancy. He's also tall. He's seriously tall. I mean, the guy's like 7'2". He is a tall guy, but he's a great governor. I have a son who's tall like him. And Barron is very tall. They're all tall, but Barron's seriously tall, right? So anyway, say hello to him. He's a great governor. South Carolina Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evett. Where is Pamela? Thank you very much. Good job you're doing. Great job. Good. And good luck with everything. I know it's big stuff, right? Oh, good. Thank you. Well, you have a great governor. Oklahoma Agricultural Commissioner Blaine Arthur. Blaine, thank you, Blaine. Good. Nice to see you. And so many other incredible women. I'm going to make so many enemies because I'm looking here. I know every one of them, and I'm supposed to say their names. Maybe we'll get to it. I don't know. It's a long list. For 4 long years, we had an administration that tried to abolish the very concept of womanhood and replace it with radical gender ideology. Maybe you heard something about that. They destroyed women's spaces and even tried to replace the word mother with the term birther person. A mother became a birther person. What's that all about? Then you wonder why they lost. They're trying to figure out why did they lose. I saw a congressman today for the Democrats. He was having a big fight on television early this morning, trying to make it so that really he thinks men should play in women's sports. He hasn't given that up yet. He was fighting like crazy. I said, this guy is going to lose. He's going to lose badly. The whole party is still into that. They haven't learned and we don't want them to learn, frankly. We want them to keep fighting. Let's not tell them. Under the Trump administration, we're ending the Marxist war on women, and you had a war on women, and we're protecting women's rights, defending women's dignity, and standing up for the American moms and daughters. So many are represented here, great people in this room. American women have never had bigger champions than all of us in the White House. I mean, it's me, but it's the group of men and women. We have a lot of men that are like Howard, our head of commerce, I see is here. What are you doing here, Howard? Oh, that's a good, he's got his beautiful wife here. I was saying, what's Howard doing here? It's like, there aren't too many men in this audience, actually. But he's a big advocate, and we're going to be making right after this, we're going to be making a big special announcement, Howard and I and Scott and a few of the people on cars. We have Liberation Day in America. That's where we take back all of this money that's been ripped off from us for so many decades, and we start a process. We're going to go with the tariffs and cars, and as you've probably been reading, it's all over the place. You've been reading and seeing and watching car companies and every other form of company. They're pouring back into our country at levels never seen before. We're up to, I guess, close, Howard, to $5 trillion of investments already, and there's never been that much for a year. We did that in a period of 6 weeks. There's never been any numbers like that. We've never seen. They're all coming in so they don't have to pay tariffs. It's very simple, because if you build your product in the USA, there is no tariff. On day one, I made the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female. So, is there anybody, seriously, is there anybody that disagrees with that in this room? I was thinking maybe somebody from the press might raise their hand. I don't think so. There aren't too many people. You know, it's amazing. It's got to be like a 98% issue, right? So what are they doing, Marjorie? What are they doing? They're fighting for a 2% issue. That's good. Let them keep doing it. No matter how many surgeries you have or chemicals you inject, if you're born with male DNA in every cell of your body, you can never become a woman. You're not going to be a woman. And that's why last month I proudly signed a historic executive order to ban men from competing in women's sports, and it was very popular and very popular. We had a track meet, and it was so disparaging to great women athletes. I've known so many great women athletes. I gave Annika Sorenstam the Medal of Freedom here not so long ago, and these are unbelievable athletes, but it's so ridiculous. They had a track meet, and you heard me talking about long-distance track meet. The man won by 5 hours and 14 minutes and 12 seconds. And I said, this is not good. And you want to see worse? Take a look at the weightlifting records. Take a look at the boxing. Take a look at this. The whole thing is ridiculous. And frankly, it's demeaning to women. And you are superior to men, in my opinion. What do I know? You are. I see you. No, they are superior. I've known it all my life, and I'm not happy about it. I'm not happy. I also banned puberty blockers. Can you believe I'm even saying this? And the sexual mutilation of minor youth. Now, who would think, you know, let's go back 10 or 15 years. If you ever heard a statement like that, you'd say, what the hell is he even talking about, right, Brooke? What is he talking about? Puberty blockers. But that's where we are. That's where we've come, and we're ending it. We're sending it back to where it came from, oblivion, right? So in the recent election, we did fantastically well with women. I kept hearing, women don't like them. I said, I think they do. You know, don't like, fake polls don't like me. That's who don't like me. but we're setting records in so many of these cases. And I was for women. I was for the women, the suburban housewife, where I stopped low-income housing projects from being built at a house next to you, where people were being decimated. The houses were being literally ripped up and destroyed. And I stopped it, and we've stopped it again. We had to stop it again. I stopped it first term. We had a great first term, a really successful first term. We had the largest increase in stock market value, 88% increase in the history of our country. We gave you the biggest tax cuts. We gave you the biggest regulation cuts. We rebuilt our military. We gave too much of it away to Afghanistan, this character. He gave billions and billions of dollars of it away to Afghanistan. And maybe we'll have to ask for that back, although it's getting a little old now. They're getting a little old. We're building new stuff. But I will say that it was such an honor working with so many great women. I've worked with women all my life. I've always been ahead on that subject. I had women in my construction business putting up skyscrapers in New York 30 years ago, 35 years ago, long before it was in vogue. And they were phenomenal. Every one of them was phenomenal. My administration listens to America's moms, and that's why I recently created the Presidential Commission to make America healthy again, and that's really caught on. That's really caught on. And Bobby Kennedy, by the way, is doing a great job. I think it's going to go down as another great choice. And we just don't want to treat the chronic disease crisis. We want to prevent our children from getting sick in the first place. And there are so many things that we are doing wrong. Something happened. If you go back 20 years, autism, think of it, 1 in 20,000 children. Think of that, 1 autism. You see it all over. 1 in 20,000 children. Now it's 1 in 36 children. Now, what the hell is that all about? There's something out there, and we got to find it. But can you imagine 1 in 20,000, and now it's 1 in 36, not 36,000, 1 in 36 children. And I see it all the time. And so there's something out there, and we're going to find it. We're doing something really wrong. And it might be very simple to even correct, but we're looking very hard, and Bobby's looking very hard, and we're going to figure it out. And to further support our nation's mothers, I've signed an executive order to expand access to fertility treatments like IVF. That's Katie. Katie. Where's Katie? Katie called your great senator from Alabama. She called, and she was like in a little bit of angst, right? She said, "Sir, we just had a ruling from an Alabama judge who said you couldn't have the clinics IVF." And I was in my plane, and she said, "It's terrible, it's terrible." Friends of mine are virtually attacking me, and said, because they're not really, people don't talk about it necessarily. Why should they? But Katie called me up. She did such a great job. And she said, "Sir, you have to get on this right away. It's terrible. They're going to close up all the clinics." They ordered all the clinics closed. And I said, "So, Katie, give me a quick definition, please. Educate me in a minute or less." And she did. And I came out totally in favor of what all of these women wanted. And it became our issue. We actually took it away, Mike, from the Democrats. They were late to the party, and it was really, I give you a lot of credit, so thank you very much. Thank you, Katie. Great job. And I also signed an executive order to begin abolishing the Department of Education, as we said, but also to go back and do things with our school children that just hasn't been done in many, many years. But the basic is reading, writing, and arithmetic, and we want to make sure that they teach English, okay? But I think we're not going to have a problem, and you're going to see things happen, I think, on the education front like nobody can believe. It's very exciting. Very exciting. And so many of the states like Iowa and Idaho and Indiana, by the way, unrelated, but Indiana, they just signed Honda, one of the biggest auto plants in the world, is going. Honda, big company, would have never come here except for, let's say, the election. I like to say the election result, but let's give tariffs a little. Well, without the election result, you wouldn't have the tariffs, right? So I guess it's all about the election, Marjorie. But one of the biggest anywhere in the world. They're building in Indiana, big plant, and we have many of them going up. Many plants in other countries have stopped. They've stopped construction. One of them, right in the middle of construction, they just signed a contract. They're going to build it here instead. So you're going to see that at record. Just remember, I told you so in 12 months from now. But on day one, we're ending the inflation nightmare that Joe Biden created and caused, but just by his spending. Two things, his spending, but I think more important, he destroyed our energy policy. And energy started going up, gasoline, any form of energy went through the roof. And then what he did to get it down a little bit, he went back to the Trump policy. Everything, let them drill, let them. They were very concerned. And it was too late because that jackrabbit had gotten out of the nest. And it was too late. They really screwed us up in so many ways. How about allowing millions and millions of people to come into our country, open borders, people from all over the world, not South America, but all over the world. They came in from Africa, from Asia, from all over the world, from prisons. The prisons were emptied into our country. I call them prisons and jails, prison being a slightly tougher term, but the prisons and jails were emptied into our country. The mental institutions and insane asylum, same thing. Insane asylum is mental institution on steroids, right? I used to say Dr. Hannibal Lecter, the great Dr. Hannibal Lecter is in a hotel room near you. And the fake news back there, a lot of fake news here, by the way. Fake news would say, why does he keep mentioning Hannibal Lecter? I said, you know why? Because we just won an election. We got a lot of votes because of Hannibal Lecter. We don't want to have Hannibal Lecter in our country. So we watched what was happening to destroy our country, and a woman, by the way, the head of Homeland, Christie is doing a great job. Kristi Noem. She's doing a great job. She's getting them out. And Tom Homan and Kristi Noem, they're doing an unbelievable job. She's tough. She might be tougher than Tom. Is that pretty tough, right? I'd say Tom is central casting, but he says, I think she might be tougher than me. So we needed that because she's dealing with a rough group of people. Millions and millions of people. 21 million people came in, but of that, at least 3 million are serious criminals. Many of them are murderers, 11,088. And of that number, about half have murdered more than one person. This is not going to end well. So we're getting them out in record numbers, and we're having a lot of problems with the courts because the courts want to pretend they're president. And they're not president. They didn't get 80 million votes, and they're not. They can't do that to this country. That's not their job. But we're getting them out in record numbers, and it's going to save a lot of lives. We got some really bad people in this country, but you see the ones we're taking out. Trendy Aragua, the toughest of all gangs, MS-13. And we're getting them out. So in just 2 months, core inflation has dropped to its lowest pace in 4 years. We've got it going down. The groceries I told you about, and energy of all kinds, gasoline, that's fallen below now $3. $3 for the first time in years since I was there. It's fallen below $3. We're going to get it down quite a bit lower. That's going to bring prices still further down, and people are going to be able to buy their groceries again, and so important. And again, I want to just congratulate you, Brooke. What a job you've done over there with the eggs. I was in office for 1 week, and I got this one article was so bad that Donald Trump has caused a massive egg problem. And I said, this is, and they showed it, it's like, terrible. But it was during his term that it went up, right? And, but they were hammering me. They thought they had us until I put you in that position. And I don't know what the hell magic wand you use. And now they don't talk about it anymore. It's terrible. Well, we'll talk. We have to talk about it, If they don't talk about it, we talk about it, right, Brooke? But what a job you've done. Now we need Congress to pass the largest tax cuts in American history, and Mike is going to get that. And I think we can finally say one big, beautiful bill, because everybody's there. I spoke with John Thune, is doing a terrific job also, and the senators, and we want one big, beautiful bill. Just put it all in that bill, and we'll figure a way to have it passed, right? We'll figure a way, but we have